blessed with attending graduations this week, and so I've had 4 graduations, 3 on official duty, 1 as a parent. And just for the record, I got 2 kids at Henderson now, because my youngest has graduated from Sagamore, and they had a heck of a graduation function this afternoon. That's after I left you today. I got to spend time with them. So, and also about the school system, my oldest daughter's, she took, in middle school, unit finals her last week. So she took 2-3 tests yesterday, 4 today. They're all posted online with their scores as of this afternoon. I'm amazed. She came, she goes, "Dad, you owe me some money. I made A, and 1 B. Pay up." And I'm like, "No, it can't be." She goes, "Look at the computer, they already posted." So anyway, to your leadership, I attribute. So anyway, my point is the job's getting done in this critical time in our school system, and I get to see it firsthand and experiencing it as a parent. And I don't consider myself a politician. I consider myself a parent and an educational advocate and a taxpayer who is almost hawkish about our tax dollars. So that's my perspective. My father told me a long time ago, "Son, it's much better to be interested than interesting." And I took that to heart, which told me to listen to people. So what I'm going to do is the part of this evening that I feel is the most pertinent for me is pretty much the Q&A between the community here. So I will wait and talk then and let y'all have the floor and ask questions specifically of what y'all would like to hear answers to. But thank you for having me here. I am a resident of Sagamore Hills. I've been in DeKalb for 20 years. I'm right down the street. You know, I had the shortest commute here, maybe. KCU? All right, I won't divulge where you live, but she's closer than I am. But we're right here. We've got vested interests. I'm concerned about the roads, and I was attending the meeting with Kathy and Jeff Rader regarding the Oak Grove intersection a few weeks ago. I thought the citizens were critical of the school board. That's a daunting task to explain to everybody how the intersection is going to change, but I got it, and I understood. I think it's for the best, and everybody will understand, just like you said. Nobody understands at first, but when it's done, everybody comes and thanks you. So I'll be the first to thank you. And so anyway, that's it. I just want to let you know I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and I look forward to the Q&A portion of the presentation. So thanks for your time.
Good evening. I am Karen Will Carter, and I sat there and I listened to Jimmy and I thought, wow, I've become more like my recently deceased husband. I'm learning that I've never met a Mike I didn't like. But what's more important are meeting my neighbors and the people who trust me and my colleagues to do the right thing for our students in our community. Unlike Jim, I did not run for this position. But when the governor expressed a need for citizens to step up and make a difference, those who understood governance, leadership, teamwork, and the ability to listen, I thought I could do that. And if not now, when? And if not me, who? So I went through the process because I'm an educator at the heart. Since I was 8 years old, I've taught all of my cousins. I'm the oldest of 13 grandchildren. So we always had school at my house because I also had cool toys. so I could incentivize my cousins to learn because I'd let them play with my toys, and that was their privilege. But I also had a life experience that looks a lot like the old DeKalb and the new DeKalb. I lived in a rural suburban community. I lived in an urban community. I had the best quality education in Baltimore City Public Schools and Howard County Trend Schools. I knew that I had had the best, and that's what I wanted for our students. So when the opportunity came, I said yes, because I wanted to serve with 8 other people who could get along and look at what was critical: student achievement, student excellence, teacher affirmation, strengthening our resources, transportation, buses on time in place with bus drivers who were capable and ready to serve. And I'm here to tell you that in the 2 months that we have been serving, we have reorganized ourselves as a board. We've established board norms, how we're going to communicate with one another, how we're going to engage the faculty and the students and the staffs in the school system, how we're going to respond to you all so that you get the best work from board members doing what we're supposed to do, which is setting policy, watching the budget, and making sure those things are in place, and leaving to the superintendent the excellent skill sets that he has in leading the administrative team to do the work in the schoolroom. You've already heard from his introduction that he could turn around 2 systems in state government. I'm honored to be serving with him and with our board. Like Jim, I could go on forever, but what's more important is sitting down and listening and helping you find solutions or providing answers to the questions you have about how we're going to strengthen this DeKalb County school system. I'm honored to be here. I thank you for allowing me the privilege of serving you and serving our children this year.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening. First of all, as I always do, I would like to thank the citizens of this county for giving me this wonderful opportunity to serve as the interim superintendent here. I'd like to thank our Vice Chair, Mr. McMahon, Dr. Carter, for their leadership and support on a day-to-day basis as we work to improve the DeKalb School District so that we're providing educational opportunities for all of our children. My state senator is here, my own personal state senator, Senator Henson, how you doing, is here, as well as the other elected officials, Mr. Watson, Ms. Gannon, and others. But the good news is, I believe, without any doubt whatsoever, that our school district is moving in the right direction. And I say it from a position, and by the way, today is a very special day for me, because this was the last day of school. This was the last day of school. And as I said earlier, I'm still standing. So that's a good thing. I also see Ms. Nancy Juster to my right, board member. Say hello to Nancy. But it's been an interesting year. It's been an exhilarating experience. And I tell folks that who come up to me, as my friend Carrie did, they say, oh, our condolences. We know that you're in a very difficult situation and we feel sorry for you. At first, it didn't bother me. But Carrie, now I'm a little bit agitated because you know what? I am having the time of my life. I really am. And let me tell you why. There are very few jobs you can have when you're surrounded by 99,000 young people. And no matter what you may have heard or not heard, we have some of the very best and brightest young people, not just anywhere in Georgia, but anywhere in this nation. And good news, you all read the report, the U.S. News and World Report issued a report evaluating the various high schools in America and in the state of Georgia. I'm happy to report that 3 of the top 15 performing high schools in Georgia are located right here in DeKalb County. And they might have gotten that in no credit to me, but credit to the administrators and the teachers, the students, and more importantly, the parents who support those students. Ranked number 2 in the state of Georgia by U.S. News and World Report, DeKalb School of the Arts. Number 6, Shambler Charter High School. And number 14 Arabia Mountain. Best high school in the state, among the best in the nation. Much good news, and also I report, during my brief tenure, we've had an opportunity to reassess the school calendar. As you know, the school board voted to rethink the balanced calendar for this year. We went back to the traditional calendar for next year. That'll give us time to further evaluate as to whether or not that is the most appropriate way to carry on the business of the school district. And we'll revisit that during the year for another vote. We also, and this might be too far down in the weeds, but we got many complaints from teachers about our reading programs in our elementary schools. So we went back, we engaged our teachers and our principals, and the program Success for All, based on their input and their decision, we decided to eliminate that program for the following year. I've had the opportunity to travel all around this county and talk to stakeholders. And I was speaking to Ann earlier, and we were laughing about, and some of the venues were not as pleasant as this one. But you know what? Everyone deserves to be heard. And more importantly, it is our responsibility to listen to the concerns, the hopes, the dreams of each and every person in this county who's interested as a stakeholder in this district. On last week, the SACS monitoring team returned to DeKalb County. As you know, the DeKalb School District was placed on probation in December of last year. And that's one step away from losing accreditation. And that was a very, very serious decision that was made. I'm happy to report, as I said, from the first day you all gave me the opportunity to serve, and now I have further evidence that the DeKalb School District will not lose accreditation. It's not going to happen. And I can tell you why. It's not just for me. Not too long ago was Dr. Mark Elgard, who leads Advanced Ed SACS, who is our accrediting agency, said that it is not likely, unlikely, that we will lose accreditation. Now, I am very hopeful that in 2 or 3 weeks, we will receive an objective, unbiased report from SACS. I am hopeful that they will have evaluated and documented the progress that has been made over the recent months, and they will be able to share with every single stakeholder where we stand, and more importantly, where we're going. I believe without a doubt, you will read in this report that we have made significant progress and beginning to lift the rail. Final thing is this: the board set parameters for the FY14 budget. Based on those parameters, we have brought forth a budget that's being now heard and evaluated at the district and across the county regarding our FY14 budget. And one of the parameters was, number one, focus resources back into the classroom, on classroom instruction, on supporting academic achievement. That was the number one priority. Number two, of course, was to balance the budget. And number three was eliminate excessive attorney's fees. I'm happy to report that FY14, this current fiscal year, we're on track to spend about $10 million on attorney's fees, which is roughly 3 times higher than any other average among Metro Atlanta. The good news is that in FY14, we are cutting $6 million from that budget. I'm an attorney. Friends, lawyers, I know. The point is, I know we can buy cheaper lawyers than the ones we have now, right? And consequently, by the way, many of the lawyers who represent us now, they come back to the table and say, you know what, Mike? I think we can provide you with a more reasonable service based on the budget projection. That's a $6 million saving right off the top. We're also cutting $13 million from central office operation. $5 million of that are positions, real position titles coming out of the budget. And these dollars are being redirected into the classroom. Number one, we're proposing to eliminate 1 furlough day. Doesn't sound like a lot, but for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been adding furlough day after furlough day after furlough day, but now we're moving in a different direction. Good news, moving in the right direction. Long way to go to get to where we need to be, but the journey of 1,000 miles end of a single step. And that step is making sure that we provide a quality education for all the children of the camp. I'm also excited by the growing cohesiveness and support we're beginning to realize and earn from stakeholders throughout the camp. It's not universal, and by the way, we're not going to always agree on everything. That's not really the answer. The point is, we need to be focused on a common agenda and trying to work together. Work as citizens, as stakeholders, as parents, as students, to help to get the camp district back on track and moving in the right direction. And we are doing that. I am proud of the work that we are doing. I'm proud of the direction that the board is providing. And I just guarantee you, when the SACS report, don't listen to anything I'm telling you. Don't take my word on anything, because you know I'm biased. I believe that we're moving in the right direction. SACS has been one of our harshest critics. This is the agency who just a few months ago was ready to rip accreditation from the district. I encourage you to, whatever your opinions are, withhold them and read that report. And I think it will show you without any doubt that we're making progress and moving in the right direction. Thank you.
The school board's 90-day plan, there are copies of here in the auditorium, I think, back at the table. If you didn't pick one up, they're available to you, and it will tell you in a good bit of detail the specifics of what the goals and objectives are and what actions are going to be taken above and beyond what the superintendent stated here. So, if you have questions, I have several cards here, but if you would, let me ask one or two of the guys from NCA to kind of go up and down the aisles and pick up these cards. I want to recognize Leona Levitan, former CEO and former state legislator, who's in the audience, and her husband Phil. Thank you for coming, Leona. The first question, and I'm not sure who to direct these to, but we will direct them to whoever can answer them, I suppose. First is, can the county not have automatic random location reassignments or transfers for our teachers? P.S. DeKalb special ed services are great. So, can the county not have automatic random location reassignments or transfers for our teachers? All right. There was no name on here, so I guess let me ask at the end of the meeting if you'll see Mr. Thurman, then he can answer that question directly. All right. Thank you. All right. Second question is: will the Kittredge magnet program be moved to Avondale? Is that move going to be temporary or permanent?
There are no plans that I'm aware of, but could you provide me with more detail?
Whoever asked the question, can you hold your hand up? Okay, anonymous.
All right, I think I'll just, from my perspective, knowing that we had considered centralizing the magnet program a year or two ago, that might be the origination of this question. And we've kept things status quo with all of our magnet schools in their individual locations, Kittredge, obviously. So we have not reconsidered the centralization of it. And the process that we're going to follow going forward is, after the budget is developed and approved in the month of June, hopefully, by the end of our fiscal year, then we're going to start a strategic planning process, which is going to last for the rest of the year. And that will kind of guide the district for the next decade. And it's essentially, stakeholder input, community input, and like I was saying, we'll listen to the communities on what their needs are, what their desires are, and see if we can adequately fulfill them. So, is that fair enough?
Thank you, Jim. I want to recognize State Representative Michelle Henson, who's arrived in the audience. Thank you for coming, Michelle. Also, Donica Kennan, who's representing our clerk of court, Superior Court, Deborah DeBerry. So, Donica Kennan, thank you for coming. All right, next question is, will you let school councils decide who their principal is, and will you let principals hire their teacher rather than the central office?
The board passed a new policy that reaffirmed the expectation, the right, and the opportunity for school councils to serve in an advisory role to the hiring of principals. And it's advisory primarily because many applications require background checks and other confidential information. To provide that information to school councils would violate state, local, and sometimes even federal law. So the statute, the policy, as it is written there, delegates to councils an advisory role. Ultimately, the only entities under state law that has the authority to actually hire is the Board of Education, on the point of recommendation of the superintendent. That will not change. But the role of councils is very important in terms of knowing and getting to know applicants. More importantly, on advising the administration on who they think might be the best candidate. Next session part of it. Teachers. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Teachers do have that authority, but ultimately they recommend as well. The ultimate hiring authority is the Board of Education for every employee, including myself.
All right, next question.
That's funny, Kerry. Oh, that's it. That's true. And it's one of the things that's interesting, and it's surprising to some and not all. The Board of Education has one employee. That's the superintendent. And it's the superintendent's responsibility to then select, hire, recruit, train staff. And then once that's done, he or she, in this case, he, makes recommendations at a higher level to the board. But the board itself has one employee.
Next question is, are you going to take after-school funds into the general fund to balance the budget?
Well, no, that's interesting, and I'm delighted that someone asked the question. Let me give you a little bit of background. In doing and working on the FY14 budget, one of the things the board tasked me to do was to, number one, ensure that our fiscal management and all of our accountability was in place. What we were able to discover, that was really two accounts that amounted to $5.8 million that apparently had not been documented and were being maintained in some ways off the books. So what I decided to do in relation to maintaining transparency was to take those dollars and place them on the books. As a public entity, there should be no fund or amount of dollars maintained and operated in a way that every citizen doesn't have access to know about it. That was my position. Now, of course, no good deed goes unpunished. And so as soon as we were able to share that with stakeholders, the question becomes, were you trying to appropriate the money? If on our budget proposal, it is designated as reserved for future appropriation. And I said at the budget hearing, I have no past, present, or future intent or desire to use these monies in any way other than what was first provided, which is 90% will go back to the schools and 10% will then be able to be used by the administration. But rather than thanks, Mike, for being transparent and allowing us to know that these monies exist, I then had a conspiracy to appropriate this money for purposes that I have no real understanding or need to do. So the answer is no. The bigger piece is we need to know where every dollar is, and when we know, we need to share it with the taxpayers of this county. And I was shocked to know that there was a fund with nearly $6 million in it that was being operated outside of the purview of the administration, of the oversight of the superintendent of the board. And we're not going to have dollars administered in that way under my administration.
Thank you. When can we expect to see class size decrease?
I'll tell you, since my kids are in the classes, it comes down to allocation of resources, right? We are trying to, and through the budget process over the next 6 weeks, we're going to figure out where all the dollars are, which Mike has done a great job so far of finding an additional 20-something million dollars. But we're also going to look at, and Nancy has always asked about our return on investment, on evaluations of how our program is working. So we're actually going to look into all of our expenditures on CASE programs, just like Michael said previously, Success for All, gone. That's a significant amount of money that can be reallocated into the classroom for living human teachers. And that is a big focus, and we realize that to be able to adequately handle the 99,000 students we have, we need to put more teachers in the classroom. And this is one of the ways, initially, that we can do that, is just through our budget process and working hard to find every dollar to get back in the classroom.
This might be for you too. When will the renovations begin at Henderson Middle School? My son is a current student at Henderson Middle and would benefit from ADA improvements as he is in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Mr. Wilkins?
Hey.
Did he leave? Stephen Wilkins, our chief of operations, he left just before this question.
He wrote the question. No, I'm teasing. When I was on school council at Henderson, prior to running for the school board, we dealt with facilities issues. ADA was a big one. I don't know whose child it is, but yeah, the walkway up the back of the school is ridiculous. So I proposed to use Stan's video camera on a rainy day and go video the kids having to get up to the back door. It was ridiculous. So what I did suggest is that Henderson community create a construction committee and work with the capital improvements division of the school system. That's been implemented. They're meeting with the construction committee to have a dialogue about timeline, needs, and be a part of the solution for the renovation. To answer your question, they're in the design process right now. So I don't know what rising grade he's in. I got a rising 6th and 8th grader there. I doubt either of my kids will see the benefit of the renovation. They will see the benefit of the lakeside renovation though. So that's just where it is. So it's a long process. Chamblee has got probably another 6 months before their renovation's completed, and the design process started on that when we authorized the QSCAP bonds for $58 million, and that was like 2-3 years ago. So it's about a 3-year process from beginning to end. So it's the best I got.
What is being done about the low high school graduation rate?
One of the things that I think that we're real pleased with is that a part of our concern is not just the low graduation rate, but working to extend completion for all students where they are in need. And last night I had the opportunity with the superintendent to participate in the Elizabeth Andrews non-traditional school graduation. So we have extended our services and our programs in those areas to make sure that we're reaching students who aren't making regular progress, extending our services to them, extending their tutorial programs, their teacher resources to get them up to speed. And if they're not doing it in a way and they are at risk for dropping out, we're also looking at how to assess them and determining whether or not a program like the one at Elizabeth Andrews is the right program. One of the other things, as Jim already mentioned and alluded to, is we have begun the planning process for our strategic plan, something that's going to move us 5 and 10 years out. And so we know that a part of the 90-day plan that, the superintendent proposed and that we adopted as a board is student achievement has got to be number one. And so we are asking all of our stakeholders to be engaged, and in particular going down to the schoolhouse level to make sure that we are getting feedback from the teachers about the programs that do work, those stay. The programs that don't work, Success for All Reading, those go. And so over the next 6 months, as a part of the priority that the Strategic Planning Committee is adopting, which I'm a part of, is making sure that the programs that we look at are for student achievement and catching the students who are falling in the gaps. Does that help?
We just want to congratulate the students graduating in DeKalb County. Can you highlight the top 10 traditional high schools with the highest graduation rates?
Okay. I don't have the top 10, but from my experience, I was at Lakeside last night at the Fox. We had the highest actual number of students graduating. 388 students graduated last night. And Mr. Reed, the principal, he was chock full of numbers. It was his swan song. He was retiring and heading off and giving his 30 years service. You remember Mr. Reed? Yeah, well, he was the principal at Sagamore before heading over to Lakeside. So he had my kids, but anyway, the number came up $4.5 million in scholarships for this graduating class is what they received. It was incredible, and that is not inclusive of Hope either. So that's exclusive of Hope scholarships, and that's Lakeside. I was at Tucker graduation the night before. We had 307 graduates. The only reason I know this is I shook every one of them's hand. I think I got carpal tunnel today from it. But the diversity among the students, I mean, they don't look like me. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's not a black and white world anymore. It is international. And to see the products that, and think about this also, these kids who graduated this year, what have they been through in their high school career in this county? 3 superintendents, 3 CFOs, Lakeside renovation, Tucker renovations, Chambly's got a renovation going on right now. They're walking, 3 boards, and still they achieve and set these high academic. It's amazing. I mean, this week has been the really fun part of being on the school board, is the celebration of achievement, and it just reinforces the fact of why I'm here, is to help increase student achievement. Even though there's great things going on, we can do better. So I don't have the top 10.
Jim, the highest is always DeKalb School of the Arts,
Yep.
as far as the graduation rate. I don't know about this year, but in 11 and 12, it was DeKalb School of the Arts.
Of the traditional schools that had a minimum of 300 graduates, number 1 was Dunwoody, number 2 Lakeside, number 3 was Stevenson, that had at least 300 graduates of the traditional high school.
But that's not the rate, because they're generally middle of the pack with the rate of graduation.
Percentage rate, because the state of Georgia just issued,
This is
it
the,
was for 2012 though, because they don't do it,
right.
it's always a year lagging. For 2012, in terms of percentage, those 3 traditional high schools were minimum, because we just did a press release. And it'll be in the
DeKalb School of the
tomorrow.
Arts was the highest.
But that's a magnet school.
Right,
It's a
right, right,
charter
not
school.
traditional.
Oh, yeah.
Those schools
Yeah,
are.
she asked about traditional schools.
Right, they're in the middle.
But if you're going to talk about non-traditional, the paper reported, and I'm a DECA parent, DeKalb Early College Academy, we have a 94% graduation rate in DeKalb County. That's the highest, period.
Yeah, if any non-traditional, but the question I thought was traditional.
It was, but if
Yeah.
we're going to talk about highest,
Yeah,
So this is
non-traditional.
2012, because that was what was just released.
That's what they reported.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what.
and we were proud that we were able to look and focus at the plus 300 size schools. Because most of the time, whether it's DeKalb or even Gwinnett and Cobb, those high-performance schools are not open enrollment schools. Now, one question was asked about dropout rate. And one of the things, one of the most exciting things we're proposing that we've been working on is the development of a career academy in DeKalb County. We visited Rockdale County. One reason, a significant reason young people drop out of high school, not because they're not smart and intelligent, they're just not interested in a 4-year, 2-year liberal arts education. One of the big challenges we face is that a large percentage of our resources are focused on helping our students prepare themselves for a liberal arts education. But in fact, on a national average, only 20% of the graduates in America will actually graduate, of this year will graduate from a liberal arts institution. And so what we have to do is create multiple pathways to success. So that young people, and by the way, as a former labor commissioner, I can tell you something. Those young men and women who are graduating with technical degrees from technical colleges, on average, are earning more money than our graduates who are graduating with general liberal arts degrees from 2- and 4-year institutions. We have to create multiple pathways to success and help young people and parents recognize that if it's a 2-year, 4-year liberal arts institution, great, but it's also just as important, and we are just as proud if you will enroll at Georgia Piedmont College, right? If you will get a technical degree and then be able to support yourself and your family through honest labor, that is a success. You should go out to the Rockdale Career Academy. Right now, we have $1 million in the budget that will allow us as seed money to build one here in DeKalb. I've been in conversation with the commissioner of the Department of Technical and Adult Education. They have in their budget a grant. They have $9 million set aside, but they will be offering $3 million grants to 3 districts who are interested in establishing a career academy. We will be one of the schools seeking the $3 million to match the $1 million we have. And I guarantee you we're going to see many, many more young people completing their high school careers. You go out to Rockdale Academy, they have EMTs and CNAs and law enforcement, any and every automobile technician. And one of the things you have to understand is not automobile mechanics anymore. The average automobile technician with experience is earning $60,000 to $70,000 a year in some locations. And the reason is, if you have an automobile trouble, you look under the hood of your car, if you're like me, I recognize nothing that I see, right? You take your car in and get it fixed. It's not a grease guy with a rag hanging out of his back pocket. You have to hook it up to what? A computer, and then be able to manipulate, use it, and understand it. Create more pathways to success. We're going to have more graduates, and more importantly, we're going to have more income tax-producing citizens in our county and in our state.
Stay up here, I think this one's for you too. Teacher salaries must be one of your priorities. Is this a prime priority?
Absolutely. And actually, the furlough day is a way to increase teacher salaries. Because when you add the day back, you actually increase the amount of money they will receive in their salary. That's our first step in a long, long journey to restore competitive teacher salaries in DeKalb County. I am excited about it. The one thing we had to do, in my mind, was to finance at least the elimination of one furlough day. That's about $3 million. Now think what I told you. We cut legal fees by what? $6 million. And half of that cut went to purchase one furlough day, which will not just an increased salary for teachers, but for every employee except for those making over $80,000 a year.
So also, perhaps for you. Has the board considered ramping up the current law department to include more attorneys and other staff to better handle the needs of the system, thereby further cutting the outside counsel budget?
The board directed me to do whatever is necessary to reduce not just outside counsel fees, but all the amount of legal fees we are spending. We're looking at every aspect of the district in terms of how we provide legal representation on behalf of the district. Everything is on the table. Even the Harry Mitchelson, one of the albatross that ran our neck has been the Harry Mitchelson you all might be familiar with. We had spent close to $6 million on attorney's fees to one of the major law firms. We went to then a contingency fee contract, but following that, we've now spent close to $13 million in case costs. I will tell you, I was meeting today at 12 o'clock with representatives from that law firm. We're going to get this straightened out. And we can't invest that type of money in a lawsuit that really originated over a dispute of less than $500,000. It really did. It originated over a dispute that involved less than $500,000, and collectively, between the attorney's fees and the case expenses, we're now close to $20 million in. And because of a clause in our retainer fee, we are now potentially responsible for some $30 million in additional attorney's fees if we attempt to walk away and sell the case without the consent of the law firm. But good news is I'm working on it. I'm working on it. And I hope to have something for the board sometime in the near future.
Should individual high schools pursue individual separate accreditation from the Georgia School Board Association?
Thanks for that question. One of the things that's important to us, first and foremost, is restoring full accreditation with SACS. As the superintendent told you, don't take his word for it, don't take our word for it. Look out for that report. We as board members had to participate in that conversation, and I believe that we're on the right path. We also want to make the opportunity available for the schools to determine how best, with feedback from all of our stakeholders, how best to ensure that they are confident that their students will have what they need for accreditation. There is an ad hoc committee of board members who are looking at dual accreditation. We want to make a sound decision that's good for the entire system, not one school versus another school. We never want to pit our schools against one another or our students. We are one DeKalb County. I happen to be District 8 at large. I live in District 4. Jim and I serve all of our districts, and so our responsibility is to serve all of our schools. So our subgroup is looking at how best to consider dual accreditation so that each and every school, if that's appropriate, has the opportunity without it being a burden on any one individual school. It's not off the table, it is being studied, and we will get to a decision with that before there is a window of opportunity that closes for our students. Our priority is SACS accreditation, but we will not close the window on dual accreditation.
Does the county school board help students to focus more on academics than spending too much time on internet, social websites, and texting cell phones?
The answer is yes, our commitment is bound and determined to help set policy for our administrative leadership team, instruction, and curriculum. And I laugh because I teach college. It happens at my college level. It's in the syllabus, it's in the school guidebooks, it's in the handbooks, it's in the superintendent's hands, but it really is our task as a community to remind our students that they're people who we want to be engaged, and we want them to be able to have a conversation with the person next to them. So to the extent that the board can continue to develop policy that's going to give the superintendent and his staff the legs that they need to help students not text, use social media appropriately, this one you can take to the bank tonight. I promise you that we're going to do that. And we have to do that for a couple of other reasons. There are federal laws that have been mandated by the Department of Education that tend to issues about misconduct with electronic tools. whether it's a computer or a cell phone and texting. And so you will find that as those policies continue to be emanated from the Department of Education at the federal level, that the state is going to also push that down to the county, and then we're going to respond appropriately. We want to safeguard our students in how they use those tools. And we also want to make sure that they don't use them not just for social bad stuff, but for inappropriate behavior, bullying. You know, our state is taking a lead. We have got great partnerships at the state level that I'm sure you've seen some of the commercials that are out there, and I know our county also takes that very seriously. And we know that today students use technology as an anonymous way to bully. So you can rest assured that those are policies that we're going to continue to be looking at and evaluating and revising. As technology evolves, we have to keep evolving in that area as well.
Does the district have the right systems and tools in place now to adequately track and report all financial and personnel transactions?
That was one of the areas that SACS really cited that we needed to improve, as well as state audits and some private ones as well. We're working to improve that capacity within the district. I mentioned to you the problem that we really discovered in terms of accounts not on the books. The good news is we have Dr. Michael Bell, who some of you know, who's very familiar with voters and taxpayers and those who've been involved in government here in DeKalb County, now serving as our CFO. He's experienced. He was at DeKalb County for 10 years or so. He worked as CFO for the city of Atlanta, a similar position with Atlanta, Hartsfield, Jackson Airport. We're very lucky to have him. He's a professor at Georgia State University, served in the U.S. Navy. We are really getting our house in order. And now we have a great leader that the board will confirm, I hope, on June 3rd as the permanent CFO for DeKalb County.
This one may be for you as well. The Georgia State study a couple of years ago found that there were too many middle managers at the district office compared to Gwinnett and Cobb counties. Do you have plans to implement any of the study's findings?
Well, they were implemented, and they are being implemented in this budget. $5 million of the nearly $18 million that we are cutting is salaries and staff at the state office. I want to say this too. You know, everything starts at home, and these men and women, Dr. Carter, Jim can testify. I've not brought one person in as superintendent since I've been there. I've not hired one person from the outside. The success, the progress we made, by the way, and we pointed this out to SAS, it's primarily been with the same people who were in place last October, November, December. I submit to you the problem was not in the rank and file staff. It was a leadership problem. It was a vision problem. And that is what we had to address. That's why this board is working so hard and not always agreeing on everything, but agreeing that the priority has to be improving academic achievement and career readiness for our students. That has changed. And that's one of the things I pointed out to SACS. No new people. And hire a single person. You know, when new superintendents come in, they fire everybody, and then they bring in their own folk from where not one person from Athens, Georgia, other than me, is working at the DeKalb School District.
What is the status of the proposed cell towers for school property?
Well, that's an item that was passed by not just a previous board, but I guess 2 generation boards ago that was passed, and it was placed on my desk. And right now, it's a matter pending at the DeKalb County Commissioners, and I'm so happy we have at least 2 of them here. And so I might want to redirect that question to Commissioner Watson over here. We may want to talk about the status of the cell tower contract that was passed by the board, but is now pending in county government. Yes, sir. Let's give our commissioner a round of applause.
Thank you, Mike. You did that in the House a couple of times too, asked the folks of it. Good evening. It is being reviewed right now by our legal department, and we want to make sure that we address the item of the cell towers in such a way that we can be responsible at the legalities of the cell tower. We're trying to treat it just like a special land use plan right now, SLUP, to make sure that we're in complete compliance legally to make sure that it works. So right now, it has been tabled, Tom, and we're actually looking at it in our legal department. It should come out this summer, and we'll be happy to come back and report what we're doing with it. But right now, we have it in our legal department to make sure that we can do it as a legal department and as a county.
Thank you. I want to note that Commissioner Elaine Boyer is in the house.
Hey, Commissioner Boyer.
The next question is to Superintendent Thurman. You are 1/3 of the way through your 90-day plan. What deliverables are complete and which deliverables keep you awake at night?
Well, first, the first deliverable that we had was, number one, develop a balanced FY14 budget. That's on the table to be considered. Next deliverable was to go out and begin to restore trust, internal and external stakeholders. That was the meaning and the purpose of my listening to it, where I went everywhere I was invited and tried to, in a positive way, to engage the stakeholders of this school district. Secondly, we began to change the focus of the district from the central office to helping every employee recognize that their contribution and they are important to the overall success of the DeKalb County School District. The issue with Success for All, that was a major issue. We eliminated Success for All, as Mr. McMahon said, because it was expensive, did not have the support of our teachers, and so this will not be done next year. We're also beginning now to address issues that deal directly with academic achievement and academic performance. And this is important, and I think this is the most important issue. In my plan, there are several references to parent, adult guardian, and mentor involvement. We talk about high-performing schools and underperforming schools, and we have both in DeKalb County. And the high-performing schools, I mentioned to you about the three that I mentioned, are scattered all over the county. The high-performing schools are not just in North DeKalb, but Arabia Mountain, which was 14 out of 14 best high school in the state of Georgia, is indeed southeast DeKalb County. Narby Harris, South DeKalb. You got Chamblee, which is the sixth high, North DeKalb. But let me tell you the one thing that is very consistent, and that all of these high-performing schools share in common. They have very active PTAs and very robust parent engagement. I talked to a young lady named Marcia Coward, who's over the Council of PTAs in DeKalb County. We worked with her and my own statisticians, and we plotted out high-performing schools, but we also did a census of survey and evaluation of PTA councils. Where are they active and where are they non-existent? Almost point by point by point. High-performing schools, very active PTA. I spent spring break researching a topic that dealt with academic achievement and parental involvement. You got to have a great board, and you have one. You need a superintendent involved, you need excellent principals, you need engaged and trained parents. But all the studies, almost without exception, suggest that the person or persons who had the greatest influence on a child's academic achievement is not the superintendent, the board, the principal, or the teacher, but it is whom? Parents. Parents. It's almost impossible. I don't care how accomplished a teacher is, without some support from parent or adult engagement, it is almost impossible for that teacher to successfully teach a child. Is that right? So what we're going to do is recalibrate. Typically, if you look at the high-stakes testing movement, oftentimes it marginalizes particularly low-income parents. So through Title I, we are going to review and redeploy our Title I service. Title I, those schools that are Title I receive additional funding if they have students who are either low income, or qualifying for free lunch. And by the way, 71% of the students enrolled in the DeKalb School District qualify for free or reduced lunch. 71%. Now, the assumption is being, well, maybe these parents don't care. I don't buy that. We are going to engage parents who may not have been involved to get involved to help us educate their children. It works for me, it worked for you, and I think it will work for other parents. That's going to be, we're going to ask parents to accept the responsibility of helping us help their children. I believe that it's going to have a major difference, particularly in areas where we have low or underperforming schools. We have resources to do it, but we've not used those resources in a way that will support that effort. I believe, and I know that all parents are not equal, right? I understand that some parents are working, some parents may not be as educated as I am, I get that. But our English as second language students, our ESOL students, many parents can't speak English. And by the way, one of the big mistakes we made, 20% of our population are students who speak English as a second language. But last year, we eliminated our interpreters. Brilliant, right? So that means in many ways we cut off communication with parents. Teachers tell me that now the only way they communicate with parents is through their children. So can you imagine having a parent-teacher conference with a child? Okay, you get it, right? You understand what happened. So one of the items, enhancement in the budget, is to restore interpreters for what is 20% of our population. We have to have those parents engaged. We just have to have them engaged. I've told this story before. You may not have all the resources, but my father, you know, the thing about him that I loved the most was he was there when I did my homework in the evening. It was always a special time for him. He was just there. Georgia Sharecropper, as Van said, he was there with my homework. I was in middle school when my mother told me, said, you know, your father can't read and write. And it's puzzling to me, how could a man who couldn't read and write help? But I figured it out when I became a husband and a father. By his presence. He was present in the room. And we're going to ask every parent, every adult guardian, every mentor to engage and support and help us to educate all our children. Y'all read the paper over the last few days. You saw the report from the new Common Core standards, right? You saw it. The truth is, and it's not race, by the way, right? See, one of the mistakes that we talk about, somehow it's a race issue, not a race issue. Middle and upper income kids are doing better. Am I right? Arabian Mountain is almost 100% African American, but it's in a 100% African American community that's middle and upper income. The schools that are struggling are schools where the majority of the population are low income kids. They just are. And so what we have to do, number one, is believe that every child can learn, and I believe it. Believe that even poor parents love their children too. And believe that they will help us help their children. But we can't do it by ourselves. It's not fair to expect teachers to teach and educate children without the support of a parent or adult guardian. And we're just going to ask everybody to make a contribution in that regard. Is that too much?
Final two questions. How long do appointed board members hold office, and will they need to be elected to remain on the board?
December 2014, Dr. Carter is December 2014. Of course, in next year, which is 14, every board member will be up for election. Is that right, Mr. Menendez? 7. I mean, it will be 7, but all 7, we're going from 9 to 7. And all 7 will be up for election or re-election in 2014. It will be a fun political year.
Yeah. And just to add on that, we were asked the board members to come to Redan High School, and 7 of the 9 showed up. And that was the question: is we don't see y'all politicking at all. When are y'all going to start getting ready for the election next year? and it was John Coleman, from Dunwoody, who took the mic.
Okay,
And he goes, similar to what Karen had said earlier tonight, they volunteered to do a job. The governor asked, I need 6 quality folks to come in here and do a job. We had over 500 people apply. So the message was, I'm here to do a job. I didn't run for elected office. I'm not person of, in the public there. No, I'm here to do a job. We're here about getting best practices in place and find the best people to implement those practices. And if someone else comes along next year that is better qualified to be in this seat, I think everybody on the board, even the elected, I am, it's definitely not for the money. I'm willing to, you want it, I love it. But if I feel I'm still the best person qualified, and that's why I ran in the first place, believe me, if somebody else can come up here and do as good or better job, believe I've got more profitable things to do. So from that standpoint, it was refreshing to hear that in the public. I mean, especially the ordained parents. And it was an honest question. We don't see you fundraising. We don't see you, politicking out there. What's your intentions? So we're here to do a job. Best people, best practices. And we can't cure it all in 1 year. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a few budget cycles. But we're going to start today. So that's where we are.
Wonderful. What is DeKalb doing to train effective principals? Gwinnett County has a very effective internal leadership development program that is competitive and results in strong principals, not just teachers promoted because they're good.
Thank you. I have acknowledged Representative Henson, too, one of my good friends, now that you talk to Steve. I've been great public servant. In 4 weeks, we will have our Summer Leadership Institute with principals, assistant principals, and other high-level support school staff. And we met today. We're working on the agenda to begin to train, retrain, and upskill our school leaders. It's going to be a critical meeting and the first of several. The summer 2013, we designated it as the turnaround summer for the DeKalb School District. There were only so much we could do during the 3 or 4 months in this fiscal year. We are going to work every day over this summer to help train not just principals, but regional superintendents. And by the way, one of the things we're doing with our regional superintendent is that we are decentralizing authority. We're going to allow them, we're going to decentralize decision-making authority from the central office and place that authority closer to the point of the delivery of the service. So we will be retraining, repositioning, re-engineering, and revisioning how we do the work, what our purpose is, and how we're going to work together to get it done. And so we're in the agenda meeting, we're in the meeting today planning for that. We're going to be working all summer. This is the one thing I said to the people at the Central, and I'm seeing it as I travel around and talk to administrators and teachers and stakeholders like yourself. The school district that reopens in August will be very, very different from the one that closed today. We're moving in a new direction. We have a new vision. We have a new focus. We won't solve all of these problems in one education cycle or one budget cycle, or maybe not even in your or my lifetime. But I tell you what, we're going to get better. Every day, my goal is to go to work and come home and say, you know what, we're just a little bit better than what we were yesterday. And I hope and I encourage you, I'm waiting with bated breath this report from SACS. It will be independent. I'm not writing. We were excited that they were coming. But we want them to know what this board has directed and supported us to do, what we are doing, and I think it will provide some evidence that we're moving in the right direction. I want to say this too. Governor Deal spoke at our high school graduation on Tuesday night. He will be speaking again tomorrow night at Chamberlain Charter High School. First time the sitting governor has spoken at those two high schools. We are proud that he's doing that, supporting this district. And also Dr. Mark Elgard will be one of our graduation speakers. He is the president of it, man. See, it won't influence anything, but I figured it couldn't hurt, right?
When did you say the report is due out?
In the next 2 to 3 weeks. And they talk to not just myself and board members, but they talk to principals, they talk to stakeholders from the Chamber of Commerce, from parent advocacy groups, from parent council groups, from all across the district. And I want to know, I'm excited, I want a baseline assessment of what, if any, progress we are making, and more importantly, what we need to do next to get to where we need to be. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think you'll have to agree that I think it's time people to find public service. They've got the DeKalb school system going in the right direction. I feel confident about it, and I hope you do as well. I want to give